Hello, and welcome back to another episode of International Insights. This is episode number 4 with your hosts, Herman and
Sean.
Today we have a very special topic that's always important when you are traveling to other countries, and that is hotels. Hotels in China, Japan, what have you.
I would second that. Hotels are extremely important. If you're traveling and you don't have a hotel booked, good luck to you.
I've traveled enough my last couple of years to know the difference between like a very, very, very crappy hotel and a very, very good hotel. And I've stayed in both. And I have to say, by far, not trying to advertise, but the Westins are by far the best hotels I've ever stayed in. Like, there was only one that was kind of bad, but that's because I was in one of those hotel rooms that were for people that needed help. So like toiletry there that made me feel like, man, I'm an old man. But other than that, hotels are very important. So Sean, I've done many U.S. hotels. Mm-hmm. However, how is the hotels in China?
Well, that's a very broad question, and I must say it's a little difficult to answer because we could be here all day in describing this. But to summarize it rather briefly, there's a huge amount of variation in the hotels in China. You can go to hotels that are equivalent to our 4 and 5 stars, and you can go to ones that will scare you half to death in terms of quality. And while many of the functions, the amenities, and the layouts of hotels, everywhere they're going to be similar. And in China, they're no different than they are here, although there are other aspects that can be a little different or contrast rather sharply. So when it comes to hotels in China, depending on your budget and depending on where you are, it's really going to influence what type of treatment and what type of conditions you're going to experience when you book a hotel. But beyond that, there are some other very important reasons we're going to discuss about if you book a hotel in China, it can be very different than in almost any other country. So there are some really important things we want to convey to you today about if you are going to book a hotel in China, you have to take into consideration more factors than other countries, per se.
So, while booking, as a foreigner, what are some of the nuances that you kind of have to get? Like, do you have a foreigner experience versus a non-foreigner experience when booking hotels?
Well, as you know, I was in China for 4 years, so in that time I've had both, hands down. But the main thing we want to convey is that when you book a hotel in China, it can be a little complicated because there are hotels in China that Chinese can stay, and there are hotels where only foreigners can stay, and Chinese. So as a foreigner, most of the hotels you will not be allowed to stay. It has to do with regulations. Mm. So if you're going to Shanghai or Beijing or Guangzhou, Shenzhen, the bigger cities, it's not going to be a problem. They're very international. You have a lot of foreign, Western hotels and big local hotels. They cater to foreigners. They have to. It's in their best interest too. However, if you go to the lower tier cities, finding a hotel where you can stay legally is going to be more difficult. So when you look for a hotel, you need to confirm that foreigners, if you're bringing a passport, whether they will accept that passport. Because if the hotel does not accept a passport or a non-Chinese resident or citizen, you will not be able to stay. And there are many horror stories about this. If you find a hotel where they say, oh yeah, we'll take you, but they're not legally allowed to, if the police find out, they will come and kick you out. It doesn't matter when or what time of the night, etc. It's just, that is going to be the situation. Now, it may not be so sharp. A lot of times, they will help you find a hotel where you can stay. But the smaller the city you go, the less your options are going to be. And in many cases, you can go from town to town in the countryside and not find anywhere to stay because you can't legally stay.
Yeah, that kind of poses a problem for those people that, I guess, don't want to stay in the bigger cities or the more metropolitan areas.
Well, I don't want to go into anything, anything specific, but I do think there are reasons for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily limit you, but it makes you have to be more cautious and do more pre-planning.
Is there like a tool, like an Expedia type thing, or like that people can use that say, hey, these are okay for foreigners, or is this none?
I have not found that, but I do find that most of the hotels on Expedia, hotels.com, the ones that actually you can use here to find hotels in China, most of the hotels listed there will be foreign acceptable, or will accept foreigners, because I myself have had a situation where I've been traveling or been with people and we've gone to a hotel and I couldn't stay there. My Chinese friends could, but I couldn't, so we had to find another hotel. And my Chinese friends and I were both very frustrated, but there was nothing we could do.
It's fine. It's an experience. You can backpack it one day. You got a little...
Yes, but depending on where you are, that may not be a good option. Not so much not for safety or anything like that, but just for conditions, or especially if it's in the winter or the time of year is not the best.
Yeah.
That could be quite dangerous.
So when you're traveling to these hotels and you're staying in them, do the hotels have any special amenities to them, like that you can kind of leverage? I know that a lot of the hotels I stay in, they usually have like these perks that provide some service. Are there anything special in Chinese hotels that is kind of like standard?
Oh, definitely. And again, it goes back to how much you're willing to pay, as it is here. But I found that, if you're going to hotels where there's a lot of foreigners that go there, oh yes, there are going to be amenities, there are going to be a lot of perks, and in many cases, they're going to treat you very well. But if you go to hotels where there are not as many foreigners, but they still allow foreigners, it's going to be a little more, how should I put it? You'll feel a little more isolated. The amenities will be there, but they're not going to know maybe how to interact with you because of either language, lack of understanding. Oh, it's a foreigner. What do they want? We're not sure. But it really depends on how familiar they are with foreign guests. Mm. And also it depends on the abilities of the hotel. What status do they hold? What amenities can they provide? It really depends. Like I said, I've been to hotels where the service was great. We had a huge room, nice bed, huge bathroom, very clean and organized. And I've been to hotels where I couldn't hardly fall asleep. I was so scared of how bad the conditions were. But that happens everywhere.
Yeah, man. I've stayed in some pretty
run
like
down.
You look at it from the outside and it's a perfectly beautiful hotel room. But once you start looking at the nooks and crannies, like, oh, this chair is busted. Oh, there's some stains in the sheets.
Oh, there's some damage on the wall.
Exactly. It's
there's a rip in the couch.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no vent.
Yeah, I think that one was bad. That one was bad.
Of course.
So, anything that would you like to advise to be aware of, just besides choosing a non-foreigner friendly or a foreigner friendly hotel?
Well, I'll be honest. Because I was a student for most of my time in China, I didn't really stay in that many hotels because I had my own dormitory and I only used hotels very rarely. But from being there that period of time, I've had enough experiences and opportunities to get to know hotels to a certain extent. Now, when I've traveled, let's start on the low end. One of my first trips, my first semester as a graduate student over there, me, a lot of foreign students, and the Chinese students, we all kind of got together and formed like a one-time organization where we went to this one water town called Xitan, which is about 2-3 hours south of Hangzhou, where my university was. And really nice water town, kind of old-fashioned and kind of old, but the hotel we stayed at was pretty morbid. I remember the beds were not that bad, but there were holes in the wall. The bathtub, all the paneling on the side of the bathtub was smashed in. The sink was busted up to an extent. It still worked, and the sheets smelled awful. I remember just not hard. I put pants on. I slept completely covered because I'm thinking, I don't know what's been in these sheets. And my roommate was Chinese, and even he was a little he was a bit uncomfortable because he was like, "This is not that good." But then again, this hotel is only 50 RMB a night, which is $7.
I don't think you can even consider that a hotel at that point.
Well, given the location, given the management, and given the atmosphere and the conditions, it was okay for one night, but it was an experience. I'll say that. But but the staff were still friendly, and it was still maintained at least outside the rooms more or less. And the city itself was quite nice.
Yeah. The hotel does not make the city, because half the time you just throw your stuff. The hotel is not somewhere you just sleep there and it holds your stuff.
Yes. Depending on what you're doing and depending on how adventurous you are.
Yeah. Should I leave my passport in the hotel room?
Well, China is quite a safe place. I wouldn't worry about violent crime or anything big like that. But I definitely worry about theft. I would always keep your passport with you. When you're in the hotel room, no problem. But when you go out, take it. Now, if you're going out clubbing or partying, if the hotel provides a lockbox or something, do that. But if you're not going anywhere where you think it could easily be stolen, I keep it with you. Because when you're over there, if you don't have a passport, you have no ability to prove who you are or to leave. That passport is, aka your survival.
Yeah.
And that's not just China, that's many countries. Because if you have American driver's license or anything else, that doesn't mean anything. They may prove your name and they can verify it, but they can't fully verify who you are without a passport. So if you lose a passport, that's an ordeal.
Do a lot of the hotels have that little lockbox for you?
I personally have never seen one in the hotels I've been in.
What?
I mean, I'm not saying they don't have them, but the ones I've been to, they have not had them. But then again, I've not been to a huge number of hotels. I've been to different kinds of hotels across the spectrum, but I've just not been someone who's been going to a lot of hotels because I was a student. If I was in business or I was in something more that required more specific travel, of course. But as a student, you travel, but you're a little more limited because you have to study, you have homework, and you have tasks, academic tasks to do. But that's kind of the low end. Kind of going up in the middle end, you kind of get more of a mixed bag of things, but generally it's much better than that. For example, one trip I took to a place called Jingdezhen. It's very famous because of the porcelain that it produces, and they recruited a bunch of international students to go there for this huge porcelain convention that's held every October. It was amazing. I mean, it was so beautiful. The city was very nice. They had a huge preserved porcelain park where they had all these workshops where people are still making it in the traditional style they made it hundreds of years ago. So it was an amazing experience. Now this hotel, because they wanted a lot of foreigners to come as guests, they put us in, I'd say, equivalent of a 4-star hotel, one of the best hotels in the city. Yeah. And this hotel, it was very well furnished, had a nice bed, huge walk-in shower and bathroom, well furnished, and was pretty nice. Now this was not really high end, but for that small town, it was high end.
Right.
So it was a really great experience, and because we were invited to come there for that event, we didn't pay anything. So there are many cases you may find where if you're a foreigner over there, staying there for a longer time, certain events or organizations may just recruit you for publicity or other reasons, and you can get free travel, free hotel, free food out of it. Because we had free hotel, and all our hotel meals were included for free. And it was a weekend trip. I loved it. I bought a lot of porcelain when I was there, and I didn't have to pay anything, and it was a great experience. So that's a great example. That's more middle to high, and then on the high end was a hotel I went to in Suzhou for a similar function where this organization wanted us to go to a convention for silk, and it was a 2-day trip. 1 day there, I stayed at the hotel the night, a convention in the morning, and we went back in the evening. This hotel, huge room, very well furnished, much bigger bathroom, more ornately decorated, great service, and this hotel had complete listings in both Chinese and English. Other hotels I've been to on the lower end, they don't have that. Again, this hotel is more frequented by foreigners. Not as much as in other cities, but more so than the other places I've been to. So this hotel was actually much more, how would I say, compatible to to a foreigner, because everything's not just in Chinese. You call room service, they don't speak English. This one, they did.
Nice.
So that's the one advantage. If you do, but we also got to stay here for free. So that's another good aspect. Now, if you're staying back to Beijing and Shanghai, those places, you're going to have every amenity you have here because they're so developed, they're so used to foreigners, it's not an issue. But having seen having compared the different types of hotels, you can really see you can kind of see what experience you get out of it. One from being kind of very adventurous, maybe a little bit dangerous. The one being, okay, not as convenient, still cool and different, to one that's a little more, okay, a little exotic, but I'm still comfortable. I can use my own language. I have the same amenities. So, kind of concluding this portion, it really depends on how much you're willing to pay, where you're at, and the hotel itself.
So your cheapest hotel was 50 RMB or $7. What was your most expensive hotel?
One of the most expensive hotels was the first hotel I stayed at when I arrived before I registered for my graduate program, but it was still cheap. It was like $100 a night.
$100 a night?
Which is, I mean...
No, that's really good. Like,
I mean, the thing is this. Hotels over there, more or less, are going to be cheaper because of the currency difference. Now, but the two hotels I stayed at for free, they would have been probably around 1,000 RMB a night, which is like 140.
Okay, but still, that's like
yeah. I mean, comparatively, it's nothing. I mean, for Chinese, that's a lot of money for one night.
Yeah.
But for us, that's not an issue. So when foreigners come, they'll spend 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 or more RMB a night because we have the money, we can pay for it. But for Chinese, that's very expensive. Yeah. But if you live there, you actually can start to consider, well, that's too expensive because I can find some other hotels. And this goes back to the point, if you're there long enough and you make the right friends, you can find hotels that are still very good, but at a fraction of the price of the ones where foreigners are kind of directed to. So that's another thing I highly recommend is if you're willing to be a little adventurous, don't just stick to the ones where you easily can find, marketed. They'll be fine, they'll be very good, but they're going to be expensive. If you want to be more economical, if you do a little more digging, you could probably find hotels where foreigners can stay. You may not have as many amenities, but you're going to save money, and you can maybe even stay longer, and not have to budget as much.
That's fair enough.
But that takes more time and effort on your part.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty nice perk from my point of view because hotels here are kind of in the expensive end, especially if it's like a very nice hotel, like that's easily like $300 easily. $300 a night.
Overall, there's hands down the U.S. hotels are more expensive. Now there are still very expensive ones in China, but generally speaking, it's cheaper there than it is here.
There was this video from a Japanese YouTuber who they did the hotel that the emperor or the president of Japan goes to visit.
Oh, the prime minister.
Yeah, and that person, the hotel room that they would stay in, would cost 3,000 a night.
Yen or US? Oh, USD.
US.
Oh my lord! Wow.
Like, I don't want to think about that what it is in M, but it's like 3,000.
That is ridiculous. I mean, why would anyone spend $3,000 on a hotel for a night?
Well, you have a full like conference room, sauna, and bathroom. So like, I mean, you're treated for a king, but I mean, you'll go bankrupt in a day.
Yeah, if you like to live like a king for a day and live like a peasant for a year, then you do that. Yeah. But then again, to each his own.
Yeah, to each his own. So what are some good hotel words to know? Like just so like you can kind of communicate with the staff. It's like
very good, very good. Well, first of all, there are several words for hotel in Chinese. The most common one for like the general hotels is bingguan. Bingguan. It basically means it's like an average Holiday Inn, Marriott, or something like that in English. So, and another one is, let's see here, luguan, more formal.
Luguan.
So bingguan is a little more informal. That's the one where you could get in trouble, maybe not finding foreigner friendly or not. Luguan is a little more. You'll be better off there.
Okay.
But there are many words for hotel in Chinese. So these are the two I've learned specifically with my level of Chinese. Now, that's just for like if you want to find a hotel. Now, if you're talking to the staff, it really depends on what you need. Basic greetings: ni hao, hello, ni hao ma, how are you?
Where is the gym?
Yeah, you could say 什么在哪里? What is where? Like you could say, Like, you could say, like, 食堂在哪里? Like, the cafeteria. Where's the cafeteria? 食堂在哪里? 食堂在哪里?
食堂在哪里?
在哪里 is like at where. Or
where.
哪里 is where. So that's a good one, is like, where is this? You know, 这个在哪里? This is where. Or, you know, whatever you want to say. So basically, like, you know, where, 哪里, or 哪儿.
The two most important phrases that I use when I stay in a hotel. Can I order room service? And can you wake me up at the wake-up call at whatever time?
Yeah, they do that as well. Now, if you're not in a foreigner-friendly hotel, good luck trying to communicate directly. You can tell them, like, 你好,我要你们起床我在6点. But they're probably going to be, oh my god, this foreigner speaking English. I mean, nothing bad, but if you're in a smaller hotel, it's going to be more difficult. If you're at a bigger hotel, or the ones in the big cities, you can do it in English, no big deal. So, I would say if you're in the big formal hotels that are foreigner-friendly, no problem.
No problem.
Other cities, don't depend on it. They may have it, but I wouldn't bet on it completely.
Right. So set up your iPhone or your Pixel phone.
That's what I always did when I stayed at hotels. Just sometimes they'll have alarm clocks. Most of them have alarm clocks, or just use your phone. But there are many words you can say, but I never really asked for much because my hotel stays were usually quite brief. So usually I would just say, where is this? You know, what do you have? You know, where's food?
Yeah.
Can you help me? You know.
Did you ever order room service while you were over there?
Not directly. Although, one time we actually ordered McDonald's to our hotel.
Oh, like an Uber Eats type thing?
Yeah,
or like...
because McDonald's actually has delivery guys over there. They actually have guys on these scooters who will deliver your food. I've had it delivered to my dorm. I've had it delivered to other places. And one time, we had it delivered to our hotel room. That was pretty cool. You know, literally, awesome. He went up, knocked on our door. He's in his McDonald's uniform with his pack, and he handed us our food.
So this is a McDonald's employee?
McDonald's employee, yes.
Oh, man. Like, you get Uber Eats and Postmates and what have you. But, man, having a McDonald's employee deliver
that was actually my first time in China back when I was still an undergrad on travel study. So I remember me and my roommates, we were just like, OMG, McDonald's delivers to your hotel room door? This is amazing.
Yeah. McDonald's delivered to my house.
Good luck in the U.S. Try to do that in the U.S. But that was a pretty interesting thing. And that was not the first time I saw a McDonald's delivery guy. It was a couple days earlier, not long after we first arrived, when we saw him driving. We're like, wait a minute, that's a McDonald's delivery guy. Oh, my Lord.
Oh, my gosh. McDonald's, you're awesome. Had me some chicken nuggets today. They were delicious.
Can't go wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
You need a snack. You need it quick. There you go.
So, food in the hotels then, like, is it pretty much like kind of like the same as here? Like, hotels here are kind of pretty much like sandwich, hamburger, and like fries and chicken breasts. Like, I don't know. I think the hotels here have like a very standard set of menu, which is like your basic like fast food. Like, here's a burger, here's a.
I would concur. I would concur with that idea. In China, it can be, as with quality, it varies across the board.
Where?
If you go to like basically the higher end, more international, the cuisine's gonna be more international. A lot of hotels I stayed at, a lot of the hotels I stayed at that were more low level or mid level, much more Chinese food. So, a lot of Chinese style cuisine that you would never find in hotels here, which is fine. But for people who are less dietarily open, it might be a bit of a challenge. Yeah. So, I myself am very adventurous with food, so it wasn't an issue. I mean, there are some things you can see. Yeah, I'm not going to try that. And one time I actually ate at a hotel and I got a little sick. Nothing bad, but I was only sick for a couple hours. But you do need to be careful, especially at lower end hotels with the food.
Of course.
But the hotels where I got to stay for free on those trips, the meals were all provided, and it was a mix of some Western food. They had actually some scrambled eggs. They had some sausage. They had like some American style breakfast foods. But it was intermixed with more Chinese breakfast and other local foods. So it's kind of interesting observation to see those different foods kind of mingling, either a little or a lot.
Was there ever beer with your breakfast?
No.
Oh.
But, curious thing is, like, drinks. Hot milk.
Hot milk?
Yeah. Several hotels
like,
actually have hot milk, where you just basically get hot milk. It wasn't bad. I mean, after a couple of glasses, it was enough, but it was actually quite refreshing.
For breakfast?
Yeah, it was hot milk for breakfast. And they also had, like, hot orange juice, hot water.
Okay.
They like a lot of hot things. You'll never see iced things in China very often. Big hotels, internationally friendly hotels, yeah, you probably can. But if they're not catering to foreigners, no.
It's hot.
Most things are going to be hot.
Yes.
But it really depends, and each hotel can be a little different, but every hotel is going to have Chinese food.
See, I always thought, like, I don't know, I've always seen hot milk used to put you to sleep, like, from TV shows, so I'm like, milk in the morning, you know?
This was not every hotel. This was just several hotels I've been to that have the same feature of hot milk.
I mean, I guess coffee's hot milk.
That's another thing that you may not. Many hotels will not have coffee, especially if there's not foreigners that go there. Don't bet on it. I know. I've been to. Yeah, but I've been to several hotels. I'd say over half of the ones I've been to. Now, then again, I've not been to a huge number of hotels, like I've said, but over half of them did not have coffee.
Okay, Sean. Sean, I am flabbergasted because I cannot function without a cup of coffee at least once a day.
Coffee is in the big cities. It's popular among the younger generation. It's popular, but in the countryside, in the more rural areas, it's not. Tea, tea is king, generally speaking. But coffee is making bigger and bigger inroads. But the more local the hotel you go, the less likely you're gonna have coffee.
Will I have strong tea though?
Possibly.
Right.
Almost any hotel is going to have tea and many kinds of tea.
Yeah, but it's the quantity of like caffeine.
Yeah, how much caffeine do you need to like get going in the morning?
Yeah.
But that's another thing. If you're really, really used to coffee, you should take that into consideration, or at least think: how important is this for the morning for me? I mean, for me, I like to have a cup of coffee in the morning, but I don't have to have it. It's convenient. But if I'm not waking up really early or I haven't had a long day, I'll prefer not to have it.
You know, talking about coffee and tea, are energy drinks very popular in China?
That is actually one thing I've not really seen a lot of. I mean, I have seen energy drinks there, but I don't see a lot of them. I may be mistaken on this, but I don't drink them, and I don't really look for them. So it's not something I see a lot of. But then again, I know we're kind of getting off topic, but service centers and like gas stations. They have gas stations, but nowhere I've been have gas stations like the U.S. We have such variety. Every time I've had friends come to the U.S. from abroad, they cannot get over the service stations, how much stuff you can buy. They're just amazed. Yeah. China, they actually, if you go to gas stations or convenience stores, they have that, but it's not as much. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff you can buy, but it's just not in the size or quantity that you can here.
I think they're trying to because like even the Quick Trip next to us, like they made it so that it has like a whole food court type thing.
Yeah, the whole thing where you'll have more like prepared foods. No, don't bet on that. Now they will have. Now if you're on the highway and they have like the big rest stops, oh yeah, there they'll have prepared food, but it's still the format is the same. What they're serving and how they're serving it is different.
I think it's just that level of trust is not here with our gas stations. Like, you know, like you hear so many like, oh, gas station horror stories, like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that egg salad. So I'm like, it's like, but in Asia apparently, or at least China and Japan, like that's a very common place to get like food and stuff. Mm-hmm. So like,
it can be rather cheap, but depending on where you're at, if you're like on a big service rest center between cities, things will be cheap, but they'll be more expensive than a normal one because it's ballpark monopoly. You can only buy it there. Whereas you go to kind of a typical one in the city, very cheap.
Hotels being the primary type of residence that you can stay at as a foreigner. Mm-hmm. There is also Airbnb.
Yes, Airbnb and couch surfing are both in China, to my knowledge. My girlfriend, she's Chinese, and she used to do couch surfing and Airbnb.
So it's couch. I thought couch surfing was a site to like meet people. Like
it is. I mean, I've never used it, so forgive me if I'm not 100% clear on on the concept, but my friends, many of my Chinese friends and friends in general have used it in Europe, and they use it in China too. It is more of a kind of a greeting thing, but it also works as a place to stay.
Yeah.
Airbnb is also very popular in China, and when I've traveled many times with my Chinese friends, we've Airbnb places instead of staying in hotels. One, because they're cheaper, and two, we don't have to worry about that residency requirement.
Oh, so like
now, don't quote me on that specifically, but we've done that in China, and it's been quite convenient because we don't, there's no checking passports. You simply you talk with the person who owns the place or the group that owns the place. You pay them. You show up. They'll leave a key for you, or you'll meet them in person. You stay there. So I would recommend, but this is going to be harder if you don't have Chinese friends.
Okay.
Now, if you can do it, great. I recommend it completely. But there's not going to be the same level of, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into, because hotel, you can read it, you can check online. Whereas this, you'd be a little more risky, but the plus side is you can save a lot more money.
Yeah.
Especially if you're traveling as a group, which, if you're a foreigner going to China for the first time, you definitely should not travel alone.
Yeah.
Not for safety, just because of it's very difficult. Especially if you don't know Chinese. If you know Chinese, even if you know Chinese, it's going to be difficult. If you don't know Chinese, I wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Airbnb, you would need to know a little bit more Chinese in a hotel just because of you're now dealing with the homeowner. I've actually never Airbnb'd, so I don't know actually how it works.
I mean, it's pretty much
it's just dealing with the owner.
I mean, yeah, you deal with the owner or the organization that has places for rent that use Airbnb. But in all the cases where I've used it, I've traveled with my Chinese friends, and they're the ones who did the booking. I may have helped pick, but they're the ones who are actually pressing the button and talking with the person.
Okay.
Now, when one of my Chinese friends came to the U.S., we traveled to Chicago. I did it in Chicago for obvious reasons. I'm from the U.S. I did it, even though my friend can speak English and do it. He let me do it because it's just more convenient and efficient.
All right.
And that's one difference is if you're a Chinese person coming to the U.S. or Japanese and you know good English, no big deal. You can make things work out. In China, it's not going to be as easy. One, because of language, but even language, it's just the environment. It's just a little more difficult.
Besides coffee, the most important thing of a hotel stay, in my point, I mean, the bed is also like number 3 there. But number 2...
I might put the bed first there, man. You're sleeping in that.
I've slept in couches before, so I'm okay. But number 2, the Wi-Fi. How is the Wi-Fi set? Like, do most hotels have
Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi?
Yes, most hotels in China have Wi-Fi. Sometimes it's a little difficult to access it, but generally speaking, you'll have Wi-Fi. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, especially since you're going abroad, Wi-Fi is always like such a... Yeah, Wi-Fi is such a important thing because you're not paying your cell phone provider...
Especially if you buy an international plan, those can be expensive.
Expensive as heck, so that's where you leverage your Hangouts, Skypes, and whatnots.
Yeah, that's the thing, take full advantage. Skype, WeChat, for example, is a good app in China. If you go to China, you will need WeChat, especially if you communicate with Chinese friends. Everything, and I mean everything, is done on WeChat over there.
You pay, you socialize, you very much... WeChat owns you. You own WeChat.
You could say that. You could say that, yes. Another thing that we should definitely bring up is some positives and negatives of hotels in China and what things you will encounter or possibly could encounter and what things you should maybe avoid. The one thing about hotels in China is that I would say that you have a lot of... They're basically the same in many ways, but at the same time, as a foreigner there, you may be encountering things you would never encounter at a hotel in the United States.
Like so?
Like, for example, I don't want to get too visceral to an extent, but the first time I was in China, during my travel study, when I was still undergrad, as I mentioned, about the first week in, we got back from our daily trip we did for our classes, going out and doing things, and when me and my roommate got back to our room, there were some cards on the floor by the door. And we were like, what are these? We picked them up, and they were prostitutes. And, well, let's just say that if you're a foreigner in areas that in an area that there are not a lot of foreigners who frequent there, you will certainly draw attention. Or at least that was the situation when I was there. And I remember that first time we got them every few days. So it was kind of like after a point where we were like, oh, will we get any today? And I remember one time we had one of our classes was at the hotel because our professors from the U.S. who brought us, we had a class in the hotel's conference room. And one morning he held up, did you guys get any of these cards? And we all just shook our heads. And he was like, don't you ever call that number or reach out to these people. And we were like, okay. And of course no one did, but
of course.
I think he was just, thinking, just want to be safe, make sure no one does anything.
Yeah, man, like you don't want to get into like a situation in which you don't know what the other person in this phone is going to be doing.
Exactly, and that is very illegal. And if you get caught soliciting sex, you're going to be in big trouble. And as a foreigner, they'll
deport you, man.
They could deport you, or they could use it as a potential. Oh, look what this foreigner's doing. That's not uncommon. I don't want to say anything bad, but it has happened. So don't do anything stupid, and don't put yourself at any unnecessary risk. And it's not even so much for being getting robbed, mugged, or even extorted, which does happen, but it's not that common. It's more, I'd say, hygiene, safety, and just not getting yourself in a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, they're above getting extorted and all that. You don't want anything bad to happen to you. So it's best just to avoid it all at all costs.
Most definitely. And this did not happen to me at every hotel I was at, but it happened to many. And some hotels, I never thought this would happen. It did happen, which really shocked me.
Yeah.
So that is really the only, I think, outlier I found that is really different. Is that is something you will potentially be exposed to, especially if you're in areas where there's a lot of business people or business activities going on. Those types of services tend to congregate around there because there's a lot of money there.
Yeah, I had something very similar happen to me when I went to Vegas. It wasn't in my hotel. Like, they weren't shoving stuff into the
Under
hotel
your
room.
door.
Yeah, but when you walk the strip, there's, I guess, boosters, like saying, hey buddy, and they give you the card. So like while you're done walking the strip, like you end up with a deck of cards. So yeah, it seems like those big populated areres still.
Yeah, if you go to enough hotels, you could make a collection yourself.
Of course. But
that would say not to have any disrespect or talk negatively. But that is just one thing that it has happened to me on numerous occasions. Yeah. And if you go to certain places and certain types of hotels, that's going to be more common.
Just be wary and don't call the number.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to show something very interesting to your friends when you come back, look what I got. You could do that, but I wouldn't go any more than that.
Yeah. What are some of the other pros and cons to?
Generally speaking, there's not really any more pros and cons besides what I've already discussed and kind of explained it into a bit. This is really the big one, outlier, which I've discussed. It's really one thing that's really unique, but that's not just China. That tends to be other countries in Asia to an extent. But I would say, other than that, I mean, there's really not too many more differences. It's going to be a different culture, different type of hospitality, but I think you will find that the hospitality will actually be more gracious to an extent. They are very good about making you feel welcome. It's ingrained in the culture. So I do think that, especially if you're in the more foreign-friendly hotels, you'll have a very positive experience, especially with the staff. They will do a lot for you.
Huh.
And even the ones that maybe you can't communicate as well, they will still do what they can. So the effort will be definitely there. Because I've been in hotels here, and the employees, they're okay, but they didn't really do much more than they had to, or they tried to avoid things. Not the case over there. If they do avoid, it's because they're scared. Oh, I don't know how to communicate. It's more not because they don't want to help you. They're just not sure what to do.
Yeah, and I actually thought that was the main reason for like non-foreigner hotels. It's because I keep hearing this being a theme, and it's like people in Asia want to. They're accustomed to a certain level of service that they want to provide their people. So
Most definitely.
So to their customers, and the fact that they can't provide that because they can't speak English well, deters them, and it's better to just say, well, sorry, we can't serve you because we can't serve you for like what we would our natural speaker,
Yeah, and this is a whole different conversation, but in Chinese culture, confrontation and being in a tight spot are avoided at all costs. So that's part of the reason. They don't want to cause confusion, misunderstanding, or potential any altercations, because that's something they will avoid at all costs. Which is understandable, but it can also be kind of a downside too.
So, what can you say is your craziest hotel story?
Well, let's see here. My craziest hotel story. Well, I certainly have less than many people who've been to China, more than I have, or been to more hotels than I have. But I do have a couple crazy stories that I could mention. Maybe I shouldn't, but for the sake of the podcast, I'll do it, because there is one that I think is quite interesting, enlightening, and hilarious at the same time. So, rewinding back, the one hotel I told you that I went to the Silk convention to, the one that had a very, very nice hotel, and it had the menus and the service book in English and Chinese. Okay, this is a hotel that I would never expect to have anything crazy, and to an extent it didn't. No cards, nothing like that. So, okay, that didn't happen. Okay, I think this hotel, it's very high-end. I don't have to worry about that. So, we had finished at the convention. We got back. I had taken a shower. I was settled in for the evening, watching some TV in Chinese, just not doing much. So, I got curious, and I looked at the service book. And I'm okay. And they had a massage service for 200 RMB for an hour. And that's like not even $30. So I'm like, wow, that's a steal. And I'm thinking, okay, now I've been warned that if you're in lower hotels or places, don't do that because you never know what might show up. But I'm like, all right, I have all this evidence stating this hotel is good. Yeah. So I call down and they pick up, and this time they didn't talk in English, but I knew enough Chinese at the point to say, I want this massage service. And they were like, okay. And they said, we'll send someone up. I'm like, okay. So about 10, 15 minutes goes by, knock on the door. Oh, good, the masseuse is here. I open the door. Well, what do you think it was?
It was a dude.
No, luckily not that bad. You just had to go there, didn't you?
Yeah. Hey, you wanted me to go bad.
Well, no, it wasn't nearly that bad, but okay.
It was Kelly.
Oh, my Lord, man. You're going too far with this. Let's get back to the topic at hand.
All right, what was it?
All right, so I opened the door, and I'm expecting a masseuse in a uniform. It's a woman with nothing but a long shirt on. And I'm like, I just remember pausing, like, processing. And I was like, oh no. I was like, and after about 10 seconds, it clicked. I know what this is. This is not good. This is no masseuse. So I tried to politely tell her in my broken Chinese at the time, oh, yeah, 不要谢谢, 不要谢谢, 对不起, 对不起. I don't want this, I'm sorry. And she told me, I'm sorry, you booked the hour, I have to stay an hour. And I'm like, oh, Lord. So I had the most awkward 1 hour massage where I remember I had to invite her in, so she started massaging me, and every literally minute she's asking, you want something, you want to do this? And I kept telling her, no. So I didn't really enjoy my massage because I was spending every minute telling her, no thank you, no, I don't want that, you're really beautiful, but no thank you. And she kept getting more confused. And she's like, yeah, the massage service is 200, but 1,000, you can do anything you want, etc. And I'm just like, no. And I remember at the end of the hour, I gave her, like, here's the 200, thank you very much. And she just looks at me going, like, she's like looking at me, why don't you want anything? Am I not pretty or something? And I'm like, and I'm trying to tell her, no, it's not you. I don't do this kind of thing. You're really sweet. I really like the massage, but I didn't want it. And she just left with the biggest look of confusion and like, there's a foreigner here. I thought foreigners love this kind of stuff in their mind because it happens a lot, unfortunately. And she just left with the biggest confused look on her face. And I'm just kind of banging my head like, okay, what did I learn tonight? You can't judge a book by its cover.
Literally.
Literally, yes. Literally. But that was my craziest hotel story that I can recollect. I'm sure people have had many others, as I said, that were much crazier. But that was an awkward, but looking back on it, hilarious situation.
I think you should have made it more awkward. Oh.
Herman, let's keep the podcast PG now.
We're gonna stay PG-13.
Yeah, you would say that. You would say that knowing you. But that was the craziest story that I had. But it's actually something that you could encounter. So my suggestion is be careful what services you offer. Be careful what services you ask for or you may receive.
Yeah.
But it's not any negative thing or anything that's bad. It has to go back to culture and hospitality and service and pleasing the guest.
Yeah, and that might be a reason to have a little bit more knowledge of the language or
in this case, yes. If I had not known, even though my Chinese was much worse than it is now, if I had not known what little Chinese, I couldn't have explained anything to her and she would have understood. So that really is a big thing. Yeah. Before you go, learn some basic Chinese. I know it sounds very menacing or intimidating to start it, but it's actually quite easy to learn spoken Chinese if you're consistent.
Yeah, and if anything, if you're gonna order a service, right, of any kind, try to aim for ones that kind of speak somewhat English, so at least you can bridge the area.
Make sure you think you're confident enough in your Chinese.
Yeah. Either you know Chinese or they speak English, but don't be put in a situation where you're trying some Chinese and you end up with some random stranger in front of your door. So
exactly.
Consequences.
Yes, and I mean, I learned that was an interesting thing, and I learned a lot from it. But at the same time, it just kind of goes to show, just be prepared, and you never know what might be presented to you. Yeah,
and it's a different culture, right? Here, that's a big thing. A massage, I've actually never seen that being. Actually, yes, I have, but only through this app. So I went to a hotel in Virginia, and I was very surprised because they did have an ad for a masseuse or a massage.
Yeah, because I've been in hotels in the U.S. I've never seen this.
So I was really freaked out when I saw this. It's oh my, but it was through this app that I kind of. It's a third party. It wasn't through.
So you're saying it wasn't the hotel itself? It was. Yeah. It was a subsidiary or a third party.
It's a Uber Eats for massages. They'll come over and
I definitely agree. That's the one thing in China. Not every hotel has it, but a lot of them will. Yeah. Here, I've never been to one hotel here that has had it in service through the hotel itself. Yeah. I mean, and
if the thing is that even if it was you're paying there easily $500 for a massage, man. A hotel here in the U.S. for a massage, man, you're paying $500 easy.
And that's the one nice thing over there is if you actually get legitimate massage services, they're much cheaper over there. You can get massages for between $20 and $100 for an hour, 2 hours, depending on what you want and where you go. So and I find they're very good because it's something that's that's something they're very good at because they've been doing it for so long. Mm-hmm. And
do they walk on your back?
I've had that done, yes. Well, yeah,
is that enjoyable?
It depends. I mean, not to change subject, but a couple of the actual good spas I went to get massages for 300 RMB, which is $45-$50. They were 90 minutes long and very professional, very well done, and I will say that they worked me really, really hard, and it hurt so bad, but afterward I felt so good.
Yeah, that's always I've only had massages twice ever in my life, and I've always felt so uncomfortable. And they really dug in,
yes.
they I had a bruise eventually. It's man, how is this supposed to be better for me?
And they also had the ones with the hot rocks where they put on the back.
Oh yeah,
that was really good too. But I mean, it may be a bit excruciating, especially if you're not very flexible or you don't stretch a lot. because they really will stretch your back, your arms, and your legs out, and it can hurt, and it can be almost unbearable. But it's like you'll be 5 seconds of pain, of extreme pain, and then like 10 seconds of and afterward you feel quite good. I mean, you may be a bit sore, but you feel much more relaxed.
Man, all that's popping into my head is remember Rush Hour 2? Come on, Lee! Heaven on Earth massage balls!
Yeah, that's not something that you're going to encounter. Well, I mean, I'm sure you could find something like that, but the average traveler will not have that kind of experience or have a Chinese friend take you to a place like that, unless you live there and have friends.
Oh, Chris Tucker, Jackie Chan. Man, I heard that they're making a 4th movie.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. But like Rush Hour 2, man, was such a beautiful
Well, then
movie.
we'll have to wait and see what they do.
We need to do an international insights in China. That should be one of our goals.
Most definitely. And I'm sure we will do that when we plan a trip to China, or if one of us goes to China, we will do maybe a podcast where one of us is there, or one of us is back here, or hopefully both of us can be over there.
Hotels in China. Beware what you get. Don't order anything specifically. Keep your passports on you. And
be adventurous. Be open to new ideas. But do your research and make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. And just understand and make an effort to know what you're doing and how you want to go about it, what your limits are, what you're comfortable doing, what you're uncomfortable doing. But generally speaking, it won't be an issue as long as you have a good, well-prepared trip, especially if you have a travel agent doing it, no problem then. But for the adventurous people who want to do it on their own, good luck to you. I know you can do it, and I'm sure you'll enjoy any time you spend in China or other countries, but just take the time to prepare and be ready to experience a wide range of things, and don't be closed-minded. Make sure you're open to almost anything. That's my suggestion to you from being there and doing a lot of this. So in conclusion, this is Hotels in China. This is not going to be true across the board or for everyone, depending on what their purpose for going to China or other countries is, but this is taken from my personal experience of using hotels in China in various capacities, and I'm just being truthful and being honest with you what you could or what you may encounter or what your expectations are. I want to help you guys answer and address those expectations of how realistic or unrealistic they are. And again, this is simply from my experience and Herman's experience, and we wish you well and good luck with any preparations for hotels in China or anywhere else you may go.
See you guys next time. We'll be posting on another video podcast soon. And until then, mata ne.
Until then, in Chinese, 再见.
Is that like see you later? See you soon?
That's goodbye.
What was it?
再见.
再见. 再见. Mata ne. Adios.
Goodbye. Until next time.
Until next time.